What do you think is the most valuable thing you might have in your life that you really don't pay attention to, especially when you're young, because you just feel you have an abundance of it? It's never ending. Time. Time. And as you get older, you realize time becomes your currency. You really have to be very, very, very stingy with your time. Don't waste it on people that aren't like-minded. Don't waste it doing things that you know are not part of your dream plan. Don't waste time being bitter, which I know I've been argumentative. I understand the meaning of hate, because in the end, it just wastes your most valuable asset, time. I just know how I work. I know what my engine will do. I don't want to get overly dramatic, but I would have been dead. I actually mastered the art of poverty for a while. You figure it out. All right, well, we have spaghetti one day a week and this and that. I managed. I think you have personality, then you have character. Personality is what you copy your father, you copy your mother.
Yeah.
She speaks a certain way. You say, oh, you have the same accent. That's personality. Character is like looking into a playpen of 10 dogs. Each one is different. It's the same litter, but there's 10 different personalities, and that's called character. And I'm telling you, I never doubted for a second that I didn't fit in. Struggle, my biggest struggle. Okay, and how did I overcome it? Well, I didn't. The point is you deal with it your whole life. I don't think you ever overcome anything. Like, you go to a psychiatrist basically to handle this situation, but it doesn't go away, period. So my biggest struggle was the way I was raised. I didn't really understand sympathy and perhaps empathy for other people. I was all about like, oh man, nobody likes me, I have a horrible life, that kind of thing. And I think that's why I got into the business I got into, to try to change my reality. So the biggest struggle is I finally have found a wonderful support system in my beautiful wife and family. And that only took about 45 years. My mother would say, the only reason you're here is because the hanger didn't work, or bouncing down those steps didn't cause you to get lost. And she said that, truthfully, Sylvester, and believe it or not, they called me Binky, because there was a hairbrush called the Binky brush that for some reason they said Binky. If there was really something wrong with your brain, I would have definitely opened up the window and put you on the windowsill and let you freeze, because I'd be doing you a favor.
What about the period when your father actually made a lot of money with a chain of beauty parlors?
You're right. That is totally blown out of proportion. Everyone likes to think of it, a trash can, struggling, battling youth, throwing away his brass knuckles, finding God, pulling his way out of the gutter and going to, that's not way at all. I left Hell's Kitchen, New York, which we did live in poverty when I was 5, but by the time I was 7, we lived in Prince George County in Maryland, and it was definitely a middle-class existence. I mean, he did own a Cadillac and he did own horses, and it was all well and good. Psychologically, it wasn't so good for me because I didn't have a flowing rapport with my parents. I only wish everyone could have that. It was quite comfortable.
When you're young, you're kind of naive and foolish. I never really hung out with other people, so I didn't know what a happy home was. This is normal. But as I got older, I realized there was some critically bad behavior going on. And then as I got older, I realized perhaps they are just a product of their upbringing.
Yeah.
Which wasn't necessarily so, but I kept thinking, oh, maybe they're... But my mother she was a troubled person. She was put into an orphanage, a very cruel orphanage, because her father had remarried and the new stepmother hated her. And I think my mother was also kind of rebellious. So she was put into an orphanage that it's unlike the ones they have today. It was, you're tied to the bed, you're whipped, and she was terribly molested.
Wow.
And I think her ability to ever show love was short-circuited.
When you tell the stories you do about your mother and her affection for the theater and the life of celebrities, and you say that she was such a great con artist that she arranged a job for you at that exclusive girls' school, and was it Lausanne, Switzerland?
Let me set the record straight. It was Lausanne, Switzerland, but it was a co-ed school. And she did somewhat con the dean of admissions by telling him, "You don't understand. He was born in Bethlehem under this weird star." And she would do anything to get me in school because I was even rejected from college of the Ozarks. I was down to 0 options. That school was great though. I have, matter of fact, the first script I ever wrote was about that school. Because there were such wealthy kids there. I wasn't, but really wealthy. Here they are turned loose on Switzerland, and they wreak havoc on that.
Shah of Iran's land's child, Hershey kid.
Right, Hershey kid, right? Prince Paul of Ethiopia, and a girl whose father owned a controlling interest in a diamond.
You ain't gonna believe this, but you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up to say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you. Every day was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward.
If you haven't ridden in a Rolls Royce, you don't mind bouncing around in a Volkswagen. You don't have that frame of reference. But more than that, I knew that if I sold it, even for $500,000, I knew that after the money was gone, I would become very bitter for having sold out, because my one love was to at least fail on my own terms. So they were caught up in kind of like the enthusiasm. And they put a lot of clauses in the contract, like if I fell in love with my leading man, or if I curse a nun, or if I don't brush my teeth or whatever, I could be removed from the script after production after 5 to 10 days. But all that aside, I really think that they just wanted to get rid of me. And they say, well, let's put him in a movie. That'll get rid of him for 2 months.
And you did it, in fact, for a very small fee. Was it $20,000 plus a percentage?
Right, $20,000. And what we have is a Screen Actors Guild minimum, which is about $600 a week. At that time, I must admit, my life was definitely on the wane, at least professionally. I was emotionally, spiritually, physically bankrupt. I had about $106 in the bank. I had a landlord. She was so big that when she came to collect the rent, like an entire shadow would cover the building. She was a vicious individual. And so I had $106, the rent was $300. I had a pregnant wife. I have a very huge British dog, as a matter of fact, a bull mastiff, who would eat anything, organic or unorganic, anything. Feed it, what do you want to feed it? A brick, give it a brick tonight, anything. So you might say I had quite a bit of fuel to sit down and write the script. I wrote the script in about 3.5 days, and only because I could hear the wolf at the door, literally. And that part was true. It really was. It was getting right down to scraping the old bottom of the barrel.
And people take it to heart because it's in our DNA, protecting the family, this and that, taking out the bad guy. I mean, it's good. It's good over evil. Every society has had it since the dawn of time. So I look at it with great pride. And when I started out with Rambo, I was the 11th choice. Nobody wanted to do it. No one. Everyone passed. And I go, you guys are idiots. This is fantastic stuff. This is like, I mean, we had to clear away a few things here and there, but it was an interesting character because it's about America being the father and Rambo being the son, and then the son does what the father wants, and then the father says, get lost, rejects them. So it's about rejection. Everyone can relate to that on a subliminal level.
You know, it's hard to believe looking at the movie and looking at you now, that you were once a boy who had rickets, and that if your parents hadn't had that gymnasium,
Right.
and you hadn't started working out, what did they buy a gymnasium? Was it one of the things your parents did?
With my mother, she started a gymnasium called, quaintly, Barbella's. And I used to go down to Barbella's, and she was one of the first ones that had live exercise. Okay, girls, let's grab those flabby waists and all that type of thing and pick up that rear end and let's work out. So she always had that sense of exercise and the physique rather than the actual mental. Not that she's dumb, but she was very, very body-oriented. But
Didn't you say about your mother that she was a woman out of place in time and flamboyant?
oh, definitely. My mother was an alien. One of these days, I expect to see two antennae come out of her head. There's no question about it that she realized it. Old Jacqueline is a brilliant woman, but quite eccentric. If I do have some semblance of a sense of humor, I caught it from her.
When we talk about the early beginnings of Rocky as a script, and when you first submitted it, and all the talk at one point that United Artists thought it was a perfect vehicle for Burt Reynolds, and then somebody wanted it for Ryan O'Neal, and it reached the point where they were prepared to pay you $300,000 if you would give up the script and let Ryan O'Neal do it. Have you heard from either Ryan O'Neal or Burt Reynolds that they've seen the film?
Not those two, but a word came back from James Caan, who was also heavy contention for that. And word is he felt that the role was made for me, and he doesn't feel any regret for having not done it, and I appreciate that. He sure would have liked to have done it, but, well, it seems like it's somewhat tailored. I have a feeling that he made it for himself. He's right. So, and the money, the offering of the money, it never influenced me, never. If you haven't seen that kind of money, one hasn't been exposed to such opulence, influence, or whatever you want to call it, you don't miss it. I don't miss it. I was out there eating rat souffle, and it was okay. It didn't bother me at all. I mean, we lived a very simple life. All I wanted to do was get an opportunity. And if that opportunity cost me $300,000, it was well worth it.
I was flat ass broke. I mean, seriously, done. But it depends how well you know yourself. I knew my personality that if I sold it, that was probably $1 million plus by today's dollars, a millionaire. And someone else did it, and it was successful, I would have never forgiven myself. I would have been a broken, embittered man for the rest of my life. So I realized we have in our entire futures about 3 or 4 serious crossroads, and that was my first one. That's a real serious crossroad where this is life altering. And I said, money, it's not about money. I know I will be destroyed. And I will destroy everyone around me. I'll be such a miserable human being for selling out. This is what the whole movie was about, is not selling out. I did build on armor. It was like, I felt I could really take care of myself. I could inflict punishment rather than take punishment. And I never stopped. But I always felt that a lot of guys, there's a lot of action guys, they have no heart. And you can see in their films, all they do is kick ass. They never get hurt. Ever. Not a bloody nose. And that's not real. The audience can't relate to that. Everybody gets hurt. Either metaphorically, symbolically, or physically. They get hurt. And you root for that person who gets hurt. Get up! Because we all get knocked down. And that's just a credo I've followed my whole life. That he's not a pillar of strength. He's a pillar of dominoes. It's just...
Can you, at this point in your own career and the success and acclaim you had, remember what it was that happened to you at that co-ed school in Switzerland when you played Biff in Death of the Salesman?
In which way? How?
Well, you said they needed a warm body,
Right.
that was breathing, and I played Biff in Death of the Salesman, and all of a sudden something happened.
I was on stage, and I wasn't feeling nervous at all. I felt in control of the situation. And then there was a scene where I had to yell at my mother, and I throw this radio down. Well, I threw it, and it went through the backdrop, and half the stage fell down. Technicians were back there with their girlfriends making out and eating hot dogs and potato chips, and what it is, and everyone started laughing. But the drama that was happening on stage was so in control of the audience that knocked them out. And I knew then that when the curtain opened for the bows and all that, and it was a standing ovation for the entire company, I said, this is what I was made to do, because this comes naturally. This comes easily to me. It wasn't something I had set out to do. I love these actors that, yes, at 3 years old, I knew I wanted to play Jesus in a film. 3 years old, I wanted to be a shepherd. I had no aspirations towards the theater whatsoever. Vikings, blacksmiths, things of bygone days. So it was that moment, totally by luck. And that's why I'm a great believer in fate. If I hadn't been walking down that hallway, if they hadn't been casting Death of the Salesman, I wouldn't be here.
People already know your rags to riches stories, how you started, where you became. So why now at your age did you feel the need, I actually want to share this with people?
It's a good question because I didn't feel this overwhelming impulse. Matter of fact, it was something that I shied away from because I thought everyone does know pretty much. If they don't know me by now, I must have done 1,000 television interviews. But I said the one thing I haven't done, and a lot of actors don't, is why you are the way you are. Why do I gravitate towards a certain character as opposed to that other one that would perhaps be more popular? What dark side pulls you in, and then what other side, the bright side, which is the rocky side? So it was kind of an exploration that I didn't want to take because I sort of knew the answer, and it all starts when you're very young, when you're a child. And I think I said it in the documentary that people don't realize how impressionable and vulnerable when you're young. You are, like I said, soft clay. And I grew up in a really bad household. It was tough. I don't want to sit there and throw aspersions and this and that, but it was not a household. Everyone was extremely unhappy with who they were.
Did you ever say anything to your wife in real life, Sasha, when things were rough and she was typing up your manuscripts? Hold on, because one day it will happen.
Oh, definitely. I would give every day. I had a campaign where you say a pep talk ready. Said it's gonna work. She knew it was gonna work. I doubt if she would have married me if I was just solely an actor and just lost in my own chagrin and ability to get recognized and becoming depressed and all that. The writing was an outlet. In other words, you could see something happening every day. The pages were built. I mean, she typed well over 500,000 words. I had scripts that I use right now to hold up our bed. I'm serious.